Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Today we're going to do something new. Today is about going in depth. So in depth is where we go back in time and take a look at what built the person, their trials and tribulations, heartbreak, joy, and what makes them tick as an entrepreneur. Each person gets their own dedicated intro as we celebrate some of their contributions to the community and look at some of the landmarks in their career. Today, we speak with two-time seven-figure private label seller, a regular to Amazon Towers, providing critical feedback to services and initiatives. He is the co-host of the Amazon Seller podcast, a partner in the amazing Freedom training programs and Facebook community. He lives and breathes Amazon and is one of the most knowledgeable people in the game. If you try and put up fake screen grabs or sell scammy services, he will find you and he will hunt you down. So raise the glass, raise your hands, raise the roof. Put your headphones on, put your phone away, let your family know you'll be back soon as we go in depth with Liran, always online, Hirschkorn.
Great. Thank you very much for having me on.
No worries. Are you ready to go in depth?
I'm ready.
Excellent. Okay, so let's kick things off. Talk to me about your parents and what they instilled in you as a child.
Yeah, so I was born in Israel, and my dad was actually, when I was 6, was given an opportunity. I'll step back. My dad was at a point in his career where he went to his employer and basically said to them, you had promised me, to move into a different department and get a promotion, and the time is up for you to deliver on that. And you're either delivering on it or I'm leaving. And they came back and they actually offered him an opportunity to come to the States, to the US, and get a promotional opportunity for 2 years. And my dad took that offer, and that's how we ended up coming to the US. And that move, I'm sure, changed the trajectory of what I would end up doing for my life. But, education was very important in my family. If I came home and you got a 90 on a test, the question, it wasn't like, hey, great job. It was, why didn't you get 100? So it was always this, sort of striving for excellence. I don't know that I parent that way today with my own kids. When they get a 90, I say, great job. I think we're a little bit different today in how we raise kids. But when I grew up, it was, that 90 is not good enough, but maybe that instilled a sense of, pressure and urgency within me to always try to kind of go for more and succeed. And with 3 older siblings, we're 4. I had a lot to live up to. My brother is an attorney. My sister has her own business and works a job as a project manager, and my other sister is a dentist. Always had a lot to live up to in terms of my siblings also.
Makes sense. So take me back to your earliest entrepreneurial memory or your first job as a child.
So entrepreneurial memory, while being in high school, I always had jobs. From being, a camp counselor to working in a local restaurant. But actually, thinking back, my first entrepreneurship was in elementary school, where my brother went to school in another area, and he would buy candy for like 10 cents, and he would deliver it to me, where I resold it in school for 25 cents. Pretty good profit margins. Eventually, other kids started to do this, and the school shut it down after some time because we were taking too much business away from the school gift shop. But for a while, my brother and I had this stock of inventory in our closet that, he would go nearby his school. We would stock this inventory. I would bring it to school every day, and resell it. And I guess that was my first, foray into, e-commerce arbitrage, selling physical products. And then, throughout the years, had sort of different entrepreneurial ventures, but I always had a job in summers and, in high school. Even when I was 18, I got my real estate license, over the course of the summer and ran around Manhattan, like a crazy fool, trying to rent apartments. It was a crazy time in Manhattan real estate. People would rent a place before they even saw it, because of how fast places went. And it was a very good experience. I ended up running around really the whole summer and rented one apartment, which was kind of a fail, but also showed me, that it's not so easy necessarily, and really shown me the hustle of New York real estate too.
Yeah, makes sense. So talk to me, what was your most, like your first meaningful job that you enjoyed?
Sure. So when I was 19, I got an internship at Citicorp Investment Services, which is a division of Citibank. And I really loved that. My sort of dream growing up was to be a financial advisor, stockbroker. I used to sit next to my dad's friend on like days off from school, and he would trade the stock market, like buying 1,000 shares at a time of a stock and reselling it for like, once you made like a point or even less, resell it. And I really love that, watching him, like watching the stocks go up and down. So when I was 19, I actually got an internship with Citicorp Investment Services. And I would make calls for these financial advisors to bring in bank customers, where they can talk to them about investing their money. Eventually I got a sales assistant position with them, and eventually got my licenses for brokerage and became a financial advisor. But that was my first sort of real job in corporate America. It was very exciting.
Excellent. And so what was your first business, and was that a success for you? Like your own business?
So my first own business, I would say really was in the, in insurance, in life insurance. I started that in 2010. And that was a success. And when I would say real business is because along the way, from probably 2007, 2008 until that point, 2010, I tried a bunch of different things in the internet marketing world that failed. Anywhere from, and some had sort of like minor levels of success, but anywhere from buying and flipping domain names, to affiliate marketing. Like I tried a lot of different things.
Give me some examples of some of the affiliate marketing stuff. Go on, give me some stories. What have you got?
Yeah, so
landing pages and stuff. Or
one example, like I had bought this domain name, and this was like early, like maybe 2009 or 2000, yeah, maybe 2008 or 2009. I bought the domain name mybear.com, and that was going to be like this, e-commerce business that this company was going to help me set up and run, and it never really took off. I ended up selling the domain, and so I didn't really lose on it, but that was supposed to be actually an e-commerce business. Later on, I actually had, I was selling products on eBay, and I would go to, now they're all closing actually, but Gymboree stores, in the US. I don't know if you have them in Europe, but Gymboree is kids clothing. And what they would do is the store would come out with like certain designs and look for kids products, kids clothing, and then they would sort of retire that line, and people would still really look for it and want to match it to their kid stuff that they had bought. And so I bought this ebook on how to run a Gymboree sort of eBay business, and did that, and actually sold and made some money doing it. But it was very time intensive, like taking all the pictures of the stuff and then putting it on eBay. But I made some money. I made some money doing that. These were, I would say, these like, side hustles where I still had like a corporate job.
So what was the corporate job? And was you doing, like you're coming home and working like 7, 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning, that kind of thing? Or
you mean on the side? My corporate job was like, like 9 to 7 type corporate job. Yeah. And then I was doing like different side hustles, like on the weekends. I remember at one point even like buying like deals online for stuff and reselling it on eBay. Like during like Black Friday and stuff like that, before I ever even knew about like selling products on Amazon. I wish I did, right? This was like, again, 2007, 2008 when I got into doing this stuff. But none of it was like, none of it was major money. One year I bought Zuzu Pets. Was like a big product in the US that was like one of these, super popular like holiday products that that people would buy at crazy multiples. And I would go to local stores and buy it, and also put all that kind of stuff on eBay. And again, that was years before I knew about selling on Amazon, but I was always looking for sort of a hustle on, how to make some money. None of it was a real business, I would say, till I started an insurance business in 2010. That was really more of a real business where I set up a website. As far as like other affiliate marketing stuff, I was in a network marketing company. And the way I became the number one enroller in that company by building out a website and driving traffic to it. And that company eventually went out of business.
Tell me about, what type of marketing were you just doing Google back then, like optimizing SEO?
Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting. So that company was a network marketing company, and they were very like early startup type company. And, typically most companies, even at that time where you joined a network marketing company, they gave you like a website where you can like market that and send people to. But this company didn't have any of that set up. So I hired somebody on Upwork, and at the time I think it was like $700 to build a website and drive traffic to it, like SEO traffic to it, and like write content and articles. And actually that worked. I started getting leads for people to like download an ebook, and then they would fill out the information, and then I would call them up and I would sell them into the network marketing company online. Also, because the company didn't have a website, and because I was really the only person in the company doing this, people who were just Googling this MLM company would find me, and then they would contact me to enroll them. And so instead of going out and having to find people to like sell this network marketing opportunity, people would actually Google this. And I joined Facebook in 2008, really just to sort of market this company. So this company, David Wolf, who is now somebody who's got like 12 million followers on Facebook in the health niche, but wasn't very well known back then. What I would do is he was involved with the company too. And I knew that his followers would like the products because they were these like raw, organic, nutritional products that his followers would like. And what I did was I joined Facebook to specifically friend his followers so that I could PM them and sell them his network marketing company that they didn't know about. So, I would do this like after work. Sometimes at the time I was a bank manager. Sometimes I'd do this in the morning, before I'd go in, or at night I would PM people, I would talk to people. And I enrolled like over 100 people directly in the company, which is kind of like unheard of. And in most companies, if you do that, you would build a huge downline. And I did. And, I started making like about $5,000 a month off this company. I ended up quitting my job in corporate America, traveling around the country with David Wolf and another pretty big thought leader in the accelerated learning space, a guy by the name of Jim Quick, who's got like several 100,000 followers now. And is a international speaker. And they really taught me a lot, besides learning from, just being an investment advisor about how to sell. I really learned also a lot of sort of learning techniques and psychological triggers and influencers of what influences people to make a decision from that experience. And the company eventually went out of business. I went back to the corporate world, but that experience really taught me a lot about internet marketing and SEO. And so, I would probably never do network marketing again, but there are two things I learned from it. One was internet marketing, and two was a lot of personal development. Because the philosophy that you sort of learned in network marketing is that everybody has a level playing field in terms of recruiting and bringing other people into your downline. The only difference is you. And so the theory was you need to work on yourself in order to succeed, because that's the only differentiating factor between you and somebody else who's successful. And so, I started going to like Tony Robbins events and getting really into personal development there. And so, I think that was one of the best. I got a lot out of network marketing. And like I said, while I would never sort of do the MLM model again, because I think it has a lot of downside and sort of like pyramid type selling. It taught me a lot of lessons on selling and internet marketing, and a lot of skills that I think would lead on to later things that I would do in life.
Indeed. I just, what you said about the network marketing, it just reminded me there was a few years ago before I started with Amazon, and I'm still kind of looking around for stuff. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. One of the things that book made a big impact on me, reading that book, because of the nature of my background and stuff.
So I went to one of these events. It was typically one of those Ponzi events where you're standing there as a network marketing. They were getting people to hop up and down, shaking each other's hands, speaking to the person next to them. And I thought, I can't be doing with this bollocks, and walked out after about half an hour. So that was my foray into that world. But which brings you on to the next point. Go on.
By the way, we use that rich dad, poor dad concept a lot in selling network marketing. You know, the whole sort of like 4 quadrants and that you want to move from one side to the other. That's exactly what we used in our pitch.
You know what? That's the thing. The bit the book I thought was great, but then that's been sold off as a brand, and it's all of the NLP stuff around it, the manipulation stuff, like the proper hard selling, because they're whipping up the crowd to get their credit cards out. And you know it's coming. Do you know what I mean? And everyone's chanting, and I'm thinking, it's like a fucking circus. I couldn't buy into it personally. Do you know what I mean? But I understand why you got out of the world. So talking about books, name me a business book that's influenced your life and why.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think definitely Think and Grow Rich was one of those first books that I probably read at that time that really got me sort of, I think thinking about the fact that you do need to have a vision for kind of what you want. You know, I don't believe in in this law of attraction that if you just think about it and sit there, it'll happen. But this idea that you do need to sort of have a purpose, a goal, a journey in place, and a vision, and then being able to really believe that you can achieve that, and then take massive action around it. Was definitely an influencing factor for me. I think that book was what kind of got me started on the path of really, having a vision for what I wanted, and then going and taking action around it.
And that's by Dale Carnegie, wasn't it?
That is not by Dale Carnegie. It's by,
we're adding to the show notes after, but it was a great book. That Think and Grow Rich, and his Thinking Big was a great book. It's like that. I think that book was written in like 1910 or something. So there are people who are back then thinking about the vision of, going forward and foreseeing what you want to get out of life and plan for it. But I agree with you, the law of attraction. I believe in karma. I believe in paying it forward. But I also believe you've got to get up off your ass and go and you've got to go out to the world, because you create opportunity. If there's not a door, you create the door to kick it in. So
right. And that's Napoleon Hill, by the way.
Napoleon Hill, that's it, yeah. Another question for you. Tell us something about you that no one else knows.
Okay, something random about me. I am actually, I don't know if this is going to be on video too. But right behind me, you can see there, hangs up on that wall. That's actually a picture of Howard Stern my wife made for me, about 10 years ago. I've been I would say a Howard Stern super fan, probably since I'm about 10 years old. And I've been listening to him probably every day of my life for the last 28 years.
He's out of control, but he's brilliant, isn't he?
Yes, brilliant, but he's changed a lot over the years, and actually I have a lot of respect for him. I've been, I'm a Howard Stern super fan. So if there are any others that listen to this, that are listening to this,
any more,
you can message me with the code words from the show.
Cool. So who's the biggest influence on your life and why?
That's a very good question.
It can be, it could be someone in the business space. It could be your parents. It could be, but someone who everyone has in their life at least one or two people, or generally they do, have big influence on them in a good way.
I think, I think when I started out in the business world, starting out as an intern at Citicorp, there were these two financial advisors, brokers, who had a pretty big influence on me in terms of really learning the art of communication and selling. I would say they've made an influence on me for sure. And then I would say probably just my parents, big influence in terms of having very high expectations, I guess out of myself and out of all my siblings.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So, what are three of the most important things that you do on a daily basis? You know, like these positive habits.
Yeah. So I think, I would say also like, as far as influence, a lot of things in the personal development world, from Tony Robbins, to, just other people that I've sort of listened to along the way. But, definitely like sort of my life philosophy is, lifelong learning, and I try to, as far as like every day, I try to learn something new, whether that's, listening to like a podcast or reading something or watching a YouTube video or
Consumption.
Consumption. Yeah. I mean, I try to incorporate that. I mean, it might not be religiously every day, but every week I'm trying to learn something new. And I try to really incorporate that in my life. I try to make sure I spend time with my family and my daughter every day. There are certain things I try to make sure that I do every day. I don't meditate every day, but I like to try to think that I'd like to meditate every day. But that's something that I do. Those things are definitely part of my everyday or every week life.
Talk to me about how you invest in your health and what are those things that you do on a daily basis there as part of your habits as well.
Yeah. So actually, like in the last year, I started doing the keto diet. I lost probably about 25 pounds doing that. I recently joined the gym again, so I'm exercising more frequently. Meditation is something that I do also. I actually learned transcendental meditation, TM, probably in like 2011 or 2012. That's been sort of a big influence on me, and I think has made positive influences in my life. So and as far as health, I do definitely try to eat a healthy diet and maintain good health. I think part of being a successful person in life is not just the amount of money that you make, but it's about success in your relationships, your money, your health, all those good things. I think I have a lot of things I could improve. Also, a lot of bad habits. My sleep hours are on and off. There's definitely things I can improve. So definitely not living a perfect lifestyle from a health perspective, but trying to do as much as I can.
Do you do things like optimize your sleep? Like you mentioned meditation, which is good. Like you just joined the gym. I mean, at the end of the day, if we are not at our full capacity, we're only going to get a certain amount of output out,
Yeah. Yeah. So I found when I exercise, I actually get, I think, much better sleep, and I actually need less sleep. So that's something I'm working on incorporating more into my everyday life, because I find that I don't need as much sleep when I'm exercising. So optimizing sleep is something I would like to get better at. And I found exercising so far I've done it in the evening has actually been pretty good for me, because after my wife will put down my daughter to sleep. That's the time where I'll go and exercise, and I feel like I'm not like stealing time away from the small amount of time I try to spend with my family every day outside of working. So I've been actually exercising like 9-10 o'clock at night. But I found that I don't need as much sleep, which is good.
Sounds good. What's the one thing that you believe in that goes against the grain for most people? I'll give you an example. You mentioned education earlier on.
Yes.
I don't pay any mind to education, and I wish I'd scrap university, college in that expensive process in order to regenerate at a young age and teach people not how to get a good job, but teach people to solve problems.
Right.
Because the more entrepreneurs in the world, the better the world can be, and the more self-sufficient the world can be as well.
Yeah. And, I was always raised with, work. And I think this is kind of like an older school mentality of, work hard in school and get a good job. Like that was the goal. Work hard in school and go be, a lawyer or something, right? Like, and get a good job. I would say, in line with your philosophy, yeah, I do. I'm not as much of a believer in that. If my daughter told me, she wanted to start a business instead of go to college, I would support that, because I think she could probably learn just as much in trying to build a business as in going to college. So I think that's definitely something that I believe in. Sometimes sort of taking the contrarian approach. But overall, I would say that, and I don't know that it's against the grain, but I believe in being transparent, honest. But those are sort of things that you would hope other people would believe in also, and not be against the grain.
Exactly. So tell me about your biggest weakness.
I would say, I would think one of my weaknesses, something that I've been paying attention to, I think in the last year also, is sometimes knowing when to say no. Sometimes making those hard decisions in saying no, and whether that's, somebody asking me to take an hour to be on a podcast that nobody listens to, maybe I should have said no and not waste my time with it, but I was too nice and said yes. Things like that. I kind of wish I was better at and I think I need to be at just like saying no, protect my time more. Maybe saying no to certain opportunities more often, as opposed to saying yes.
Makes sense. Tell me about your darkest hour just before dawn. So that's a saying where, you maybe missed mortgage payment, you've had to let staff go, them kind of struggles that have kept you up.
I actually, I would probably say my toughest time, maybe personally more so, was going through a divorce, in, what was that, like around 2002, 2003. So I got married the first time very, very young. I was 21. By the time I was 23, my wife at the time was pregnant, and we actually separated when she was pregnant. That was quite a difficult time for me. It was, it was something I had to do at the time. I think it was ultimately a good decision. But yeah, going through trying to work and pay bills and child support and pay attorneys and go through all that at the time, and fighting to see my daughter, who was a baby at the time, going through a lot of that. That was definitely a difficult time in my life. It ended up that darkest hour, like you said, before dawn, ended up meeting my current wife, like, maybe about a year after that, and turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to me. But definitely that was, I would say, a difficult and challenging time.
So my next question was going to be, what should be your greatest comeback from adversity? Is that what you put?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and, I think also, I think being able to find success in different industries, in my life has been something that I'm proud of. I started out in sort of the banking world and working for corporate America. I then went out on my own, and I moved up. I was 19 when I started at Citicorp. I was an intern in college. Eventually, I moved up there to a financial advisor. Then eventually, I became a bank manager. So I was able to sort of move up in the corporate world. I left that, started an insurance agency that was successful. Sold that, started Amazon, had success with that. And even in the insurance world, I kind of also went into a leadership position. In fact, you can probably listen to an episode of mine on the Sell Term Life Insurance podcast I was on at the time, like sometime around that 2013, 2012 time, where I was kind of growing into a leadership position within that online insurance agent world, which was kind of like a small niche, like the Amazon selling world. And so I find myself sort of gravitating towards these leadership positions, and starting to figure out that maybe I'm not an introvert, and maybe that I'm actually an extrovert, and need to be like around people. So definitely proud of the fact that I've been able to have success in different industries.
Yeah, that makes sense. What is the most common advice you give to people, like general advice, not necessarily related to business?
I mean, a lot of the advice. So I'll say a couple of things. One, so a business and personal maybe. One is, have gratitude, be grateful for where you are. Sometimes I'll think to myself, I'll almost complain to myself that like I'm so busy, but at the same time, I'll turn back and say, don't complain about being busy, because the other side of that is nobody giving a damn, right? And so being grateful, I think, for what you have in your life, no matter kind of where you are. I think in order to achieve more, do more, be more, whatever, you have to come from a place of being grateful first for what you do have. And then, on the business side, I would say that there is no sort of perfect roadmap for like success in business. There's ups and downs, there's bumps along the way. And one of the, I think, mainstays for anyone that's been successful in business is having that grit and perseverance to fight through challenges and obstacles. They're going to come no matter what. Even when you are successful, they're going to come. And having the right mindset, I think, is the number one reason for success. Before you have any skills in whatever you're doing, I think you need the right mindset.
Makes sense. What advice should people ignore?
There's going to be a lot of people who, when you tell them especially in business, when you tell family and friends, like, hey, I want to do this venture, I want to go into this business, they'll tell you you're crazy. They'll tell you, you're going to lose money. You're going to waste your money. When I told my parents I was going to quit my job in the corporate world, they thought I was crazy, and it was one of the best things I ever did, was getting out of the sort of 9-to-5 world of my life being dictated by somebody else. When I could take a vacation, when I can take a day off, all that stuff. Getting away from that is one of the best things that's ever happened to me. But understandably enough, people are concerned for you and think that you're making a wrong decision. And I would say, in the entrepreneurship world, not necessarily taking the opinion of others, especially others who haven't, you have to listen to and this is something I learned in network marketing, right? A lot of people tell you in network marketing, hey, what you're doing is bad, is stupid, whatever, right? But you also have to pay attention to, the advice, to who is giving you that advice. Is this person that has been super successful in their life and has achieved everything you want? Or is this person that's giving you advice not in a place where you want? And then maybe you shouldn't take advice from that person if they're not living their best life, sort of. Pay attention who's giving you advice and what they've done in their life first, before you actually, take that advice.
Makes sense. So moving on to the more business ends things now, we'll get into Amazon. So where did you find or kind of discover Amazon FBA? Like you mentioned eBay, you understand inventory, you were conning your school out of making money, and you were taking your own family as a youngster. Talk to me about your story. Everyone has their little road to get into Amazon. I actually got to Amazon basically because I started to reverse engineer eBay as a marketplace. Spent a few days or so pulling around the house, getting together, taking pictures of stuff in the garden because of the sunshine. Then I walked to the end of the road with all my packages and realized the post office had shut down 2 years ago, and I don't drive. So that was the end of my eBay career. But then I got back and I looked on the forum and I found Amazon FBA. And that's it. That's when the light bulb come on. March 31st, 2015. I was like, wow. And that's when you're onto something. You wanted to move in a direction. So everyone has their story. What's yours?
Yeah. So my first real foray into like e-commerce was in 2014. I think it was probably a Facebook ad that I saw for a course called Dropship Lifestyle. And this course, it actually is, it was pretty solid course. It wasn't teaching you like dropship from like AliExpress or something. It was teaching you how to build a Shopify site, contact US based like companies, manufacturers, even if they, produce their products in China, contacting US companies and seeing if they dropship like on a wholesale basis. and setting that up. And so my first foray was actually doing that. It cost me like $400 to set up a Shopify store, and I sold balance bikes. So these are bikes for kids that don't have pedals, that teach them how to balance before they ride a bike with pedals, and they don't need training wheels. They're very popular. And so I was buying from like Strider, major company, and a few other companies, and they would ship directly to the customer for me. And that was pretty successful. The margins were very small, but I had somebody running like Google ads to it. Margins were very small because if you're not buying inventory, they don't give you their best prices, obviously, for drop shipping. But that was my first foray into e-commerce. And then after sort of, learning more about e-commerce, I found some groups on Facebook all around Amazon FBA. And that's when and those groups were not focused on private label. They were focused on arbitrage. And so that's what I started with, going to stores, buying products and shipping it into Amazon. And that's really how I got started with FBA.
Sounds good. And how much did you invest to get started?
A few $1,000s, I think, was, kind of starting out. And it was very easy to start that way because, I could go to a store, spend, a few $1,000s on all different things. So I wasn't putting, money into all like one product. And I was jumping on listings that already had like a bestseller rank. So the risk was quite low in terms of not being able to sell stuff. You can always lower the price, etc. So it was kind of very low risk kind of thing. I brought inventory home. I would take off the price labels off the stuff, ship it into Amazon. But, that was also a very good foundation for me to learn Amazon, to learn about bestseller rank, to learn about, shipping inventory into Amazon, to do a lot of that stuff before getting into private label. I had a very good sort of base knowledge. Even, later on, I had a very good base knowledge of like flat files. And, so I would scan, with an app, I would scan barcodes in stores, and I would scan a shoe and see that shoe was like a really bad bestseller rank, but it was on a listing on its own on a size 6. And then I would find the parent that had a good bestseller rank, and I would merge that variation into the parent listing to bring it into a better selling. And I was the only seller with that size because it was on a listing on its own, for example. So I learned about like flat files and variations and a lot of the sort of good basics that you want to have, kind of knowing Amazon. I learned through arbitrage.
Yeah, makes sense. Talk me through your first product launch, and what year was this?
So 2015, it was about the summer of 2015 when I did my first product launch. So actually sort of a quick story, before I got into private label, I had gone to ASD show in Las Vegas to look for wholesale products. And on the flight back, I sat in first class. I used credit card points. I sat in first class, and I sat next to a guy that had $100 million business. Not all of it online, but a lot of it wholesale, in two categories: the perfume industry and the electronics industry. And he was actually flying out to ASD for one day to see one of his clients that had a booth there. I was kind of, and so it ended up, we had gone to we're flying back to New York, started talking to him on the flight. We had both gone to the same high school and had some things in common. He was about 10 years older than me. He wanted me to come work for him. And we had a meeting a few days later at a dinner with one of his partners and his operations manager, and I actually agreed to come work for him. And this is when I decided to outsource my entire insurance business and go from sort of this part-time into really full-time into Amazon. And I worked for them for 2 months. They were doing some shady things that I didn't really like, and so I ended up leaving. But one of my motivations for getting into private label is that I was going to develop a private label product for them. And I started doing that and develop a product for them, and then I left. And so now at this point, this was summer of 2015, now I'd outsourced my entire insurance business. I sent all my leads to a friend, and we were splitting commissions 50-50. And now I had the time to focus on private label for myself. And that's when I started my first product. And the good thing for me was that I still had these commissions coming in from insurance to sort of fund my life while I was building this. And that's really when I started with private label. It was about summer of 2015.
Cool. And talk me through some of the issues maybe you had with the product launch. You know, back then, you know, people were doing friends and family. Reviews are easier to get, unverified reviews. There was review clubs where people were filtering and God knows what. So that was like the Wild West back then. So talk to me about that period for you.
Yeah, and you know, I'd used those services to get initial reviews on a product because it was perfectly legal within Amazon until October 2016, when Amazon said you can't do incentivized reviews anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd used, you know, I think there's still in existence. I think like Snagshot was one of the sites you could use to, you know, put products out there. People would leave you reviews. And actually, you know, in hindsight, one of the learning lessons from that experience, even though some of those reviews ended up getting wiped, one of the learning lessons for me was not being more aggressive in terms of getting those reviews, because the sellers who took full advantage of what the policy was at that time and got thousands of reviews on their products, and a lot of those reviews still stuck, ended up being at a major advantage.
Yeah, they grandfathered themselves in, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. And I had used it to get, you know, an initial, you know, 20, 25 reviews on a product, and not really more beyond that. I wasn't as aggressive as you know, I feel like I should have been. I probably could have gotten more traction with products if I would have been. Yeah, you know, so reviews was very easy. I didn't know yet about any sort of launch methods outside of like getting these initial sort of reviews. I didn't know about the sort of viral launches of the world, or, you know, giveaways of the world yet, until probably sometime maybe beginning of 2016, or when that I think also got more popular. I started out, I had like an initial product that did pretty well. I had a second product that didn't do well. That product was actually, you know, I saw this product at and this is one of the mistakes that I kind of warn people about today, was I was at a wholesale show, and I saw this woman, and she was selling these baby moccasins, and she was selling them at a price where I didn't think that on Amazon, I could, like, buying at her wholesale price didn't seem like it would make sense for me on Amazon. And I was talking to her, and she said, look, you know, she was kind of honest with me. She said, look, I make these in China. If you want, you could just go make these in China yourself and sell them. She was selling in stores, and she didn't really care if I went and like became competition. She wasn't my competition. She wasn't selling them on Amazon. But it didn't make sense to buy wholesale. And I ended up doing and launching that product. And I think I went for a premium quality leather, and I was expecting to get a higher price than the market. A lot of the Chinese sellers were selling these baby moccasins for like $9.99 on Amazon, and I was hoping to get like 18 to 24, and that didn't pan out for me. And that was also one of the early learning lessons for me, that, you know, Amazon is a marketplace, and it is price driven in a lot of ways, and you can't necessarily expect to bring in premium quality and get like double the price that the market was asking for. And that was one of my product failures, I would say.
Yeah, makes sense. So walk me through some of your sourcing process, you know, in terms of what products that you obviously take on.
Yeah. So, I mean, so as far as now, in terms of what I do for product sourcing, is definitely differentiation, is something that I go a lot for now. In fact, one of the things I'll be talking about in my talk for at Seller Sessions event will be on sort of a tactic on how to find ways to differentiate your product. I like products that there is a design element to them, because I feel like there's more room and opportunity to differentiate the product. So as opposed to, let's say, like a barbecue glove, there's only so much you could do. Probably the only thing you could do with the barbecue glove is bundle it with something in order to differentiate. But I like products where there's more room to differentiate the products.
So do you use like tooling and molds and stuff like that? You get involved nowadays with your design?
Yeah, so I've done some stuff that needed molds, but nothing that was at a extremely high cost or anything. I think the most I've paid for a mold was like $750 or something. So I haven't needed molds that were like $10,000, $20,000 or anything like that. But yeah, I have hired designers. Sometimes it's pulling like multiple pictures of things online, and showing those to, a supplier and sort of putting a combination of things that don't exist yet. But definitely I like to source that. I also like to go now for a little bit higher price products. So ideally, $50 to $150 type products as opposed to, $10 and $15 products.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the most important metrics that you track on a daily basis for your business?
Well, I mean, I think the easiest, metric is obviously your sales. But really it's ultimately my daily profitability, so looking at, my daily sales minus my, PPC costs, is something that I sort of, and obviously cost of goods is something that I look at, on a regular basis through,
what about long-term value for the customer? I don't know. Do you do any subscribe and save? So you've got,
So I don't have products like that, where I have some clients that do that, sort of lifetime value of a customer that are in supplements and products like that, where you're willing to pay more to acquire a customer because you have that lifetime value of a customer. So yeah, like supplements. I don't have any products, really any consumable type products. So for me, most of the stuff is, 1 unit, 2 unit type purchases. Maybe the person will buy something as a gift and come back in the future, but it's really not. So it's really, so I look at those metrics.
So Liran, if I can give you any advice,
yes,
start selling some consumable goods, get repeat customers.
Yes. I would love to get into some consumables. Actually, I know you have some.
Yeah.
And I would love to get into more consumable type products. And so I do. So I look at that stuff like on a regular basis, and then things that I look at more, like let's say more on a monthly basis, are just looking at things like my sessions and conversions. I think that's really an important metric to look at. So to kind of see how are you trending in terms of your traffic and your conversions.
Yeah, makes sense. I was going to say, talk to me about a product failure and how you learned from it. You kind of mentioned that earlier on. So talk to me about a key marketing channel you couldn't do without. Obviously, things like Amazon sponsored ads. What is your main thing? Is it sponsored ads, or do you have other things that you simply couldn't do without as part of your launch process?
I mean, I think sponsored ads is definitely a necessary, and some would say a necessary evil, but a necessary when it comes to launching private label products, especially today. I think it's also one of the best ways now to rank and launch private label products. So I think that's, I mean, obviously Amazon is that necessary channel for me. I have tried eBay, and also put more effort on selling through my website. I still get some sales through my website, but I don't put a lot of focus and attention on it. Talking about failures, I put a bunch of money into hiring an agency to run Facebook ads for my e-commerce site. It didn't work. I didn't put in a lot of time into it, but I put money into it, and that didn't convert well for me. And so after that, I said, okay, let me just focus on Amazon, really. And that's really my bread and butter.
Again, that's where consumables will come in. I don't bother with offsite. Eventually, I'll get into doing offsite when I can find the time. But it is one of those things, is that if you've already acquired the customer once and there's a chance of a repeat order, you've got more chance of survival in that world, off of Amazon,
Right.
Cool. So talk to me about your biggest win as an Amazon seller. It doesn't have to be a financial one. I already know you're a 7-figure seller, but is there any big wins that stand out for you that you've gone, I don't believe any of the people within our community. I know people doing close to 40 million a year, and they're not at 100 million. So they don't feel like they're there yet. Do you see what I mean? I think we all had that situation, but we do have milestones. So what's your biggest win across, would you say?
Well, yeah, I mean, I will say, so I think as far as milestone is, transitioning from arbitrage to the private label model, I think was definitely a win. I also had some pressure I feel like that I needed to make a change because, while I started private label, I was still doing some arbitrage in order to keep cash flow going because, until you develop a product and launch it and get it going, it's going to take you, a few months probably, especially if you're bringing it over by boat. And I was still doing arbitrage and I started to get these infringement claims. I would sell like Nike sneakers and a customer would claim it's inauthentic. And so I'd gotten a couple of those. And that's when I made the decision to stop sourcing arbitrage altogether, just sell through the inventory that I had and go all in sort of to private label and make that transition. And I think being able to make that transition was definitely a milestone. And right now I'm also waiting for a possible offer on one of my brands. So that will be another nice milestone if that comes through.
So one of my questions was, are you planning on exiting your business? And
yes.
What would you do next? So let's just talk about you're lining up possibly to exit one of your brands. It was set to liquidate some cash. So
yes.
You've got some money around you, just, because we all know that when you run an Amazon business, services make their money while you run your business and you make your money the day you sell.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And running some services, I know that to be the case. And being involved in services is also a nice additional income stream for sure. And I say that's a milestone too. Being able to sort of come into this game and network and learn a lot, and then being able to help other people and also leverage my knowledge to make an additional stream of income, I think is another nice milestone. Definitely planning on exiting at some point all the brands that I'm building. I think that's, like you said, that's when you really make a lot of the money in your business. I saw a webinar the other day, and the person said you'll make 50% of your money while you run the business, and you'll make the other 50% with the day you sell the business, or something to that effect. And so I think I agree with that. So definitely planning on selling. I have a new brand that I started with a partner this year. So the goal is to build that brand further. I have another brand that probably I will look to sell at the beginning of next year, and one brand that I'm hopefully selling now. So yeah, I think having that exit in mind starting out. There was definitely mistakes I made early on. For example, I combined two brands in the same account. That's made it more difficult for me. I've had to separate them out over the last 6 months. That's made it more difficult to sell a brand because, understanding the profitability of a brand when you have Amazon storage fees and you haven't separated out which brand and which products those storage fees are on and all that, makes it more difficult. So definitely my advice would be, if you have multiple brands or if you're planning on launching multiple brands, separate them into separate Amazon accounts, get permission from Amazon. It's very easy. But definitely the goal is to sell. And I think if I sold these two brands, my goal would be to continue building the one and then do, more consulting and helping other brands. I'm doing a good amount of that right now, whether it's managing PPC or just coaching, etc. But I still want to maintain my own brand and continue to build that up.
Yeah, makes sense. So where do you see your business in 2 years from now?
Yeah, so hopefully in 2 years, I've narrowed down to being involved in one brand. I've done hopefully 2 exits at that point. And then, been able to take some chips off the table to invest more money and putting money away for my future. Right now, like you said, being in e-commerce, your money is constantly tied up in inventory, and it's sort of part of the game. And I don't think that changes, like the bigger you get as a seller. I think you just have more money tied up in inventory.
More money, more exposure, yeah.
More money, yeah.
So outside of friends and partners, who do you rate in our community for putting in the work, and why?
Who do I rate
in our community? If you were going to get, I want to do these episodes as a special thing for people that contribute to our community. Mm-hmm. If you was going to get someone in to do an in-depth, who would be your in-depth? Who would you interview?
So, I mean, I happen to be a big, I would say, fan of Casey Goss from Launch, even though he's not a seller. I really believe he's one of the most genuine, people I've met in the space who really wants to help sellers. So I would say, Casey, he is a friend. But I would say, his story is also quite interesting. And then there's others. There's obviously you. I come on your show a lot. I respect a lot of what you do. And my partners, I obviously respect a lot of what they do. There's a lot of really good people in this space who've brought me on their podcast, Many Codes, Bradley Sutton, who I think are genuine and looking to help sellers in this space.
Makes sense. So talk to me about, we kind of alluded to this earlier on about the importance of giving back and paying it forward. That's always been my thing. This is why I publish 3 times a week. The benefits I've got out of this is unmeasurable in terms of finances. I don't see it from a financial point of view. I've always said that with the podcast, I like to do it. I enjoy doing it. It's like my hobby, even if I don't get paid. But the side effects have been very great for the businesses that I've been involved in. So talk to me about how you feel about the situation with paying it forward, because it seems to be a common theme that the people that you meet, that they're all within that same realms.
Yes. And I definitely see the benefits of it also. I have sellers sending me messages on Facebook all the time. I try to answer every single person, whether I know them or don't know them. I never think about it as like, how am I going to monetize this, or is this person somebody that is in our paid group or not in our paid group? Sometimes I don't even know, to be honest, right? So
you don't treat everyone as a financial transaction.
Yes, absolutely not. And the benefits of that, I've gone on a podcast and shared something, and then I'll have somebody randomly message me back and say, "Hey, I really like that tip. Let me give you something."
Yeah, I get that as well. Yeah,
and that's awesome. And so I definitely, I was in when I was in the corporate world, and especially doing in positions where even though I was in the corporate world, I earned commissions from sales. I was in BNI, who is a major international worldwide networking group, and their slogan or their motto is "Givers Gain." And that was the whole thing, right? Because this was like a person-to-person referral network. And they taught you not to think about what are you going to get back from this person, but the mindset was to give other people. And when you give other people, you end up getting back in return. And I feel like that's definitely come full circle for me in networking and meeting other sellers.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say. Networking, it's just like how you and I met. Like, we wouldn't be sitting here today if I hadn't gone over to Vegas speaking at an event, hosting a panel that you were on, and we struck up like a relationship there, didn't we? And we've been inseparable ever since. Yeah.
Yes.
But
yeah.
It's random. You can go thousands of miles, and then that connection, how that kind of reaching out across the globe,
I think networking has been one of the biggest game changers for me in the business. People always ask about going to events and am I going to get a return on going to this event? And most of the time, I would say that the people you meet outside of the session are going to be more influential and beneficial for you than necessarily sitting in a lot of times when you go to events and when you go to the sessions. I just came back from Prosper, and I didn't go into any sessions because I was just there, this big room, and there's networking there and vendors and stuff. And literally, I couldn't walk a few minutes without running into somebody that I knew in the space and talking to them. And some, there were some really good conversations that resulted from it. And that's been as a result of just going to a lot of events and being involved a lot. But put yourself out there and go to events and strike up conversations with people, because you don't know. My partner now in this new brand, Kellyanne, is somebody I met at a 2016 networking event, and now we're partners on a brand. So Andy Slammers, who's my partner, and Nate in Amazing Freedom, I first met Andy face to face at a conference. And I don't think I knew him from Facebook before, but I don't think if I hadn't met him face to face that the relationship would have continued at the same level.
Yeah, makes sense. What's the worst bit of advice you've heard given to sellers?
What is the
worst bit of advice?
Worst bit of advice?
Yes.
I will say that one of the things that I hear a lot, and I don't know that it's worst bit of advice, but one of the things that I sometimes will see in groups is a seller asking something, and somebody will say, "That's against Amazon terms of service. Don't do that." And I think sometimes in business you can't look at everything black and white. And I'll give an example. This could be talking about putting up an image of your product with like a badge, with a white background and a badge. That's something that Amazon, hasn't suspended people for. In fact, they rarely ever take action against it. And I think if you can do something like that and get ahead a little bit, I think it's okay. Worst case, Amazon will suppress that image. And sometimes I see people, in groups saying, hey, if it's against Amazon terms, I will never do it. I won't risk my account. And those are not the people doing seven figures, to be honest. And so while I wouldn't do anything illegal, like, buying reviews, for example, I think there are times in business where you do need to not look at everything as black and white, and also be careful who you listen to, because in these Facebook groups, a lot of times you just have trolls and people that aren't successful and people with the wrong mindset giving advice. And so just be careful to who you listen to and kind of make your own decisions.
Cool. And what advice would you give to advanced sellers today?
It's a good question. I would say, with Amazon, you want to be aggressive. I would say, I think we're still in a tremendous opportunity for the next, 5 to 10 years in building out businesses and being able to exit them. One piece of advice that I would give you is take chips off the table. I've seen sellers that have had an opportunity to sell their business a year or two ago and could have gotten more money that they can get for their business today.
They sell it on the down rather than on the up.
Yes, because now they have more Chinese competitors, more price competition, and they probably could have sold their business at a bigger multiple a year or two ago, before maybe it got a little bit more difficult in their particular space or niche, and they should have taken it. And I do hear a lot of sellers saying, but I still want to grow the business. But when you sell, you need to give an opportunity to somebody else. You need to give them the vision to grow the business. And I think taking chips off the table earlier maybe than when you would like, or at a certain price that you like to sell, I think is smarter.
Sounds good. Complete the sentence for me. Amazon is. Choose your words carefully.
I would complete the sentence with Amazon is a love-hate relationship.
Excellent. And that, mate, is a wrap. So thank you for joining me on that. Can we have a quick chat about Seller Sessions Live? You're speaking now. We're just announcing the content. Can you give the audience a little bit of background on what you're covering at the event in your presentation?
Yeah, and so my talk is not going to be on just one specific topic. But I'm gonna be talking about several different things you can do in your business to get ahead, to drive more revenue, to increase your profitability. So, for example, I'll be talking about some advanced optimization tactics with PPC. I'll be talking about using some of the newer things that are in PPC to your advantage, like product targeting ads. I probably will add some things to the talk that I haven't included yet about, utilizing dynamic bidding, for example, which is a new feature. How to write better copy for your
headline search ads as well, yeah.
For headline search ads, sponsored brand ads. I'll talk about some totally separate things, like how to get videos. Yeah, how to get great influencer videos for your business, super cheap, that could really increase your conversions. Where to find those videos, how to get them, and some of the best places to use them off Amazon also. And there'll be more things that I haven't written yet. But I think
yeah, that's going to say, I think what we're all doing, because I'm obviously closely working with everyone with their slides, and everyone's in agreement, we change subject to changes. So everyone's trying to bring the best content as possible, and they're doing it up to the date. So, you know, a week before, like I gave people grace is like, we know what we want to cover as the bulk. You know, I've discussed it with everyone. Everyone's doing their area, but everyone's aware that they'll make changes as and when, in case there's a TOS change or technique, and you want to add a new, you know, adding content right up to the date. So when people walk in the room on that day, they've got the up to most date, you know, freshest content.
Yes. And, you know, one of the things that when I was putting this together, and as I continued to, one of the things that I want to deliver on is not pie in the sky theory type stuff. I want to deliver to you things that you can go and implement like that day in your business that will improve it. And I think that's in there.
That's the goal, because obviously it's in a keynote theatre. And so everyone is structured learning. So everyone's got desk space. They'll have their own seller session pads and pens. And they'll be able to go through step by step with people and document everything down. Because normally conferences are fantastic, right? I go to them all the time. But it's not always easy trying to write notes on your lap with a laptop and it's spilling off, you know. But having workspace in front of you and stuff like that, it's more like a controlled learning environment, you know?
Yes. And, you know, I love sort of workshop style kind of learning a lot better than hearing somebody you know, talking about some theory or some inspirational kind of talk that isn't necessarily going to make an impact on my business that day. But, you know, I think what you're putting together is giving people things that they can go and implement in their business right away, which is awesome.
Sounds good. Well, look, let's wrap that there. What's the best way that people can reach you if they want to reach out?
Sure. So we have a Facebook group called Amazing Freedom Amazon Sellers. You can find me on Facebook and reach out to me there. And we also have the Amazon Seller Podcast.
Sounds good. Guys, thanks for joining us. Liran, thank you for joining us. I'll see you again in the next few days. Take care.